We will start the first session of the Q&A, and we will try just to go بالترتيب. I will omit يعني الرسائل بتاعت الشكر. Thank you very much. But Dr. Haider, there is a lot of رسائل for you saying that people are looking forward to hear from you, and definitely recording your contribution will be very valuable. The first question is from Amjad Saleh. How do you implement economic political ideas from the diaspora, but adapting them to the Sudanese society and culture? It's a generic question. We would appreciate if one of the speakers will contribute in 2 minutes. Don't know whether Iman or Bashair or Bakri or Shireen would like to make a comment.
I'll just kind of start making the point. It shouldn't be the diaspora dictating necessarily what should be happening. It actually should be the vision of people in Sudan and how then the diaspora can contribute to it. So I think this is quite critical to understand that, because you don't want to fall also into that trap. I think somebody mentioned it earlier, that white savior complex. Somebody actually mentioned about the diaspora savior complex. So I think this is what needs to be considered first.
Thank you. Bakri, any addition?
Bakri, I unmuted you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bashar, for really highlighting the most important piece. I don't think it's gonna be one way or another. It's not like the Sudanese in diaspora are supposed to be the one who's doing the thinking and the implementation. I think we are not. It's not like there are two entities or two different groups competing. It's Sudanese people in Sudan, outside Sudan, could benefit from each other's expertise and experience. So I think maybe I would go back again and say the most valuable piece of contribution, no matter how you put it in a framework, is going to be the knowledge sharing to me. And that is probably maybe will take different shapes and different programs. But basically, that's really what it is. Knowledge sharing and sharing experiences. To me, that would be the beginning to start anything. So it's not like either or. But thank you, Bashar, for really highlighting the savior complex, or somebody is supposed to be the one who's doing more than anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Bakri. I don't know whether Iman or Shireen would like to comment on this area, or should I move to the second comment?
I'd be happy to comment very quickly.
Yep.
Yeah, I would. I mean, this is a really good question, because I think a lot of the discourse, especially within international development, the less critical discourse on the diaspora tends to think of it in a straightforward way, that we'll invite the diaspora, they'll come to the table, they'll bring all the knowledge and the resources that they've accumulated over the years, and they've got this happy marriage of need with provision, and it doesn't work that way, and it never has. And I think that it's important to just recognize the fact that history will come into play, certain cultural dynamics will come into play. And that's where a platform like GPO would be required, and other platforms where you can foster interesting conversations, where you bring the diaspora and you bring the key local actors and indigenous actors to the table and have them discuss issues together. And then through a lens of complementarity, where we help one another, we complement one another through comparative advantages and comparative levels of access. People in the country are the ones who know the most about the needs of the country. I mean, in the diaspora, we can say that we are connected to our people as much as in our homeland, and we love our homeland and we're dedicated to it, but we'll never know about the needs of this country, of our countries, as much as the people who are living in it day in, day out would. And so, but also we in the diaspora have comparative access and access to platforms, access to international actors and international platforms that indigenous actors don't always have access to, and don't always have the capacity to reach. And so that's where a lens of complementarity would be very useful, and where platforms like the GPO would be quite strategic.
Thank you, Shireen. There are two questions that I would like to ask before we move to the second So there is a question for you, Shireen, from Dr. Musaad Abdullah. How could we bridge the gap between the current governmental policies on engagement of the diaspora and what should be the role model for change for the diaspora themselves?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't, I was muted for a bit. But just a response to this question, I think that we are very much in a transitional phase, and we're in a process of still learning, and it's a process of, for a period of time, it would be a process of trial and error. But I think what would be needed quite immediately is for those platforms to engage the diaspora very effectively and very quickly on core issues, and to make sure that that form of engagement is moderated and mediated in a way whereby it's not a form of Sudanese diaspora coming in to tell the local diaspora what to do, but again, it is a form of complementing what one another, what we have in terms of comparative advantages and levels of access. So, pretty much what I said before. I don't know if that responds to the question.
Thank you, Shireen. We have a lot of comments and questions. I'll come to them later, but I'm just going to read the questions, and I will come to the other useful comments that have been made. There is a question from Iman and Al-Khatim, who is a human rights lawyer. Hi, everyone, and thank you for this useful meeting. My question is how to develop channels and build a better effective communication. Is there a platform where all different skills and expertise can volunteer their time and effort to support the current government? Iman, can I ask you to, if we can unmute Iman as well, please.
Thank you, Sarah. So let me speak about the previous question first of all. I know that one of the things that you need to, when you speak about any diaspora strategy or policy, it has the political, it has the economic, and it has the social aspects in it. In each of these aspects, usually when you create a strategy, you create them in partnership with the diaspora. So you have a vision of the government, and then you engage with the diaspora and you consult with them, and that's where you start doing the adaptation that was spoken about. So I think that's important because the diaspora should be able to give ideas, but there should be a platform, and that links to this question where they can give these ideas, but these ideas should be discussed and and dialogued about to see whether they can work for the country or not. I'm not aware if there are platforms that exist right now where you can volunteer your time and effort. And I think that's one of the things that probably the Secretariat of the Sudanese working abroad would create. But there are other ways where you can engage with Sudan, and there are platforms where you can engage with Sudan. Shabaka, for example, Bashayir is here and she can speak about it, but Shabaka is one of these platforms where you can engage with Sudan. And there are other platforms that are popping up, but as of now for the government, I think I'm not aware of any, but the Secretariat of the Sudanese working abroad can respond to the question.
Bashayir, do you have any quick comment on that before I just go to the last question?
Okay, I'll just kind of say briefly, I think it's one of the challenges because at the moment there's no clear pathways for how people can engage, and I think this is what needs to be done, is that kind of building blocks. There's a lot of initiatives, a lot of efforts, a lot of interest and commitment happening from the diaspora, and you sort of search through the revolution, and I think the time is really kind of running out really in terms of the government needs to kind of step it up, and actually they've been talking about diaspora, reaching to diaspora has been mentioned so many times and all of that. As organizations such as Shabaka and other, we can do small pockets, we can do the guidance, the support to facilitate those engagements and bring these particular expertise for that. However, there needs to be something that needs to be bigger, which is that kind of decision making done at governance to ensure there's something transparent, processes taking place. So I like the fact that this has actually been raised several times now in the discussion. So again, strongly. And every experience is unique. You cannot just replicate what's happening in Yemen, what's happening in Somalia. There's a lot of expertise out there, but each country needs to also go through its own needs and specifics. in terms of what does the diaspora, so you need to do your mapping of skills, locations and all of that, but also the specific needs. So you cannot just say we're going to need loads of doctors and then you'll have everyone with medical backgrounds coming to the country and just deliver that. I think be strategic as well on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bashar. So the last question before we end this session is from Amira Mohammed, about how Sudan national policies and plans regarding diaspora are linked or not linked to the Khartoum process. I'm not sure if Shireen or Bakri would like to make a comment on that. I think, Samira, we need to unmute the speakers.
Yes, I am muted, Bakri.
Thank you. Thank you. That's an interesting question. First of all, I would like to know what is meant by Khartoum process. But if it is what I thought it is, if that meant the idea of the most recent negotiation to establish a transitional government, is that what's meant by Khartoum process, or are we talking about something else? I think
yeah, the Khartoum process about the control of immigration and
no, I know. So she's talking about what happened during the Bashir government with the European Union agreement providing some. Okay, yeah. I have no idea if there is any connection whatsoever, but I don't even know.
Okay, no, don't worry.
I don't even see the logic of linking in a way. To me, Khartoum process was a very clear way of using Bashir regime to control immigration, because Sudan used to be the kind of crossroad country. A lot of people come from other countries and then they move north. There might be a piece to it about diaspora, but I have no idea if there is any link to it. I can't speak to it. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Shireen, do you have any insight about this from research point of view? It's an area which became a bit, people were debating it, but after the revolution, I think, became a bit quiet, and there's not a lot of information about the Khartoum process like before. What's happening, deactivated, activated, the links with the RSF and all of that.
So how's that linked to the diaspora in particular? If you can
the question, yeah, let me go back to the question. How Sudan's national policies and plans regarding diaspora are linked or not linked to the Khartoum process?
I mean, I think at the moment, I can't see clear linkages between one and the other, between the Khartoum process and policies regarding the diaspora as such. Maybe there is some particular angle to this question that is not very clear to me. But at the moment, I can't think of a clear link between one and the other. What I think is important to recognize is that as we are in a period of transition, where the diaspora is engaging in the setting of policies, it's what we should expect is a lot more listening on the part of the council, a lot more understanding of the situation of IDPs and refugees, a lot more shifting of pre-revolution policies to policies that are a lot more in favor of the new Sudan, or a positive political transition for Sudan. But at the moment, there's just lack of clarity in terms of how those linkages are made, or how and if they were linked.
Thank you, Shireen. And thank you, Tariq, Abu Salah, and thank you, Yusuf, and as well, Munzil and Wijdan Hamour. Thank you all for the comments, which we will keep for the GPO and feedback. For the sake of time, we will move to the second session, the round of speakers, and we're going to move to more sort of practical projects and networks to listen and hear about how can we learn from these sort of operational sort of projects. So the first speaker is Renda Abdullahi Ahmed. And the experience of Renda, that she has worked in both the public and private sector in the United Kingdom and Germany, and then eventually she pursued a career in the construction industry, currently working as a delivery project manager in the water industry. Her experience is both in clean and waste water infrastructure and non-infrastructure, looking after a suite of medium-sized projects, the value of 10 million, as well as a handover manager of a 180 million portfolio. The aspiration of Renda in terms of developmental programs for Sudan, her key interest is in drawing a vast pool of diverse and multidisciplinary domestic and international expertise who will enable the rebuilding and restoration of all sectors and in industry across Sudan, with a special focus on regeneration of rural areas. She is keen on instill positivity and ethics as a core value to success, and her core is to do her part to ensure a fair and likely chance for a new Sudan to prosper. So from Anna Sudan Network, which she has founded, that's for the development of a new Sudan with the sole purpose of creating a vibrant economy and to achieve social cohesion. Renda, we are looking forward to hear about your network, about your experience and links.
Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
I've got a fan in the background. It's quite roasting today in London, so forgive me for the background noise. I'll just start by saying, for those who know me, I like to speak from the heart, so forgive me for not being excessively formal in this segment. And please help me keep track of the time, because I do have the tendency of just going on a little bit too much. So firstly, obviously, I'll start by saying thank you to the GPO team and Dr. Sarah for the opportunity. And I would say to share my voice. And I think this is a step in the right direction in my view. And when I say share my voice, I think I want to draw the attention with that to my place as Muwatna Sudaniya, so a Sudanese individual who simply cares about Sudan. And I would say in Arabic, Muwatna Sudaniya Mia, despite the fact that I spent most of my life abroad and in a multitude of places. So I would say that with this notion, where I grew up or where I spent my life is probably irrelevant in this moment in time. So in terms of my role in the rebuilding phase of Sudan, I would just say that I started in Sudan simply from a place of now we finished our protesting, we finished our speeches and our chants. I wanted to now see practical steps. I wanted to get involved practically in this exciting phase as I saw it following the revolution. So I would say that everything I'm going to say, the esteemed panel of speakers have pretty much covered all of the points. And it was actually, it gave me reassurance that my mindset is in the right place. So that was really great to hear. So forgive me for any repetitions. But this is the thought process. So I see the diaspora and certainly my role in the rebuilding phase and reconstruction of a new Sudan. I see it wholeheartedly. From my perspective, this is not anybody's, and it's not any studies, any type of academic sort of research behind it. This is how I see it. And I see my role is in the building and protection of civic space. If I can just read you a quote of a description of what is civic space. This is from a website called transparencyinitiative.org. It says civil space, i.e. the freedom and means to speak, access information, associate, organize, and participate in public decision-making. It's essential to the healthy functioning and development of a society and is considered a precondition for accountable governance. and social justice. So then with Ana Sudan, I started quite excitedly thinking, oh, great, we've got lots of processes, lots of policies, procedures here in the UK, lots of great ideas that we can simply take away, import into Sudan, and voila, we have the answer. And very quickly, I realized that's not the solution. And I think Shireen touched on exactly the experience I've had. So what I faced is cultural differences, although I thought I was purely Sudanese and I grew up purely Sudanese. So there were some cultural differences or cultural nuances, I would call them. There was some type of a defense mechanism that naturally people's defenses came up when they felt that, oh, you think that you know it all, you think you can tell us how to fix things here. And I think they were right in thinking that way. So I went back to the drawing table and with my little team, and I think we realized very quickly there has to be a level or a process of rehabilitation. I feel that whether we are the diaspora, or this is what I've experienced, and guys, I would remind you, there is no academic research behind what I'm talking about here. This is purely practical experience. I felt that, and there is, today in my family, there are 3 generations. And we're talking from my parents all the way to my nieces and nephews. I feel outside and inside Sudan, there has to be a level of rehabilitation because we've been traumatized, I feel, as a society. And so that rehabilitation and making ourselves whole has to happen as a process before we can start thinking, well, now I am a fit 100% producing Sudanese person outside of Sudan or inside of Sudan who can now make the right decisions and come up with these great concepts and ideas that will help or participate in revitalizing our economy. So there are some clear objectives that we set out, and that's what we're working on as a basis for Ana Sudan. And the first one is connecting people. So we've realized very quickly we're all spread across the world. We are all of Sudanese culture, another culture, and there's that place in the middle. And as most people know it, that third culture mentality. So by reconnecting with each other, we break geographic barriers. And the most important piece of the puzzle is reconnecting with our Sudanese brothers and sisters. They accept us and we accept them, because you'd be really surprised how many people don't consider people like myself Sudanese. They would say, well, what do you know about Sudan? Or you've not lived here, etc. So there has to be that process of acceptance, because as much as their identity might have been impacted over the last 30 years, certainly as the diaspora, we have been impacted in terms of what is our identity? What is that common identity? Is there a need for one? And I think I was looking forward to Dr. Haider's talk on identity, because that's been critical. And it's something I have to say, me and my circle often talk about. So breaking geographic barriers, connecting, and in connecting, we start to bring together collaborations. People who have our entrepreneurial ideas, or people who have a new concept they've learned in a particular country, or someone with some money they want to invest in a philanthropic initiative. Everybody will come together, we'll start that dialogue. And it was very important, and it's still very important. And I keep trying to drum the message. We are not going to get very far until we start working together, until we start creating positive synergies. And we are, it's a cliche, stronger, much stronger together as a unit, as opposed to individuals. And hence, for me, I would love to get to know as many initiatives and networks as possible, to learn from each other and create that connectivity, so that we can together start really building large initiatives that can impact such a huge country like Sudan. Individually, my network will be like a drop in an ocean. Sarah, sorry, if you wouldn't mind just keeping track of the time. I don't want to.
You have 2 minutes. Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm going to finish very quickly. The next thing comes naturally is knowledge sharing. And knowledge sharing, as I said, we have, again, one of the speakers mentioned this. We have abroad access to technologies, resources, contacts. What we've established in the diaspora, I think, and I tend to refer to it often, there is a professional arsenal, Sudanese people in their hundreds of thousands outside. This is very expensive resources that countries pay a lot of money to attract. We have it scattered around the world. So we need our government to help us draw that expertise back in, whether volunteer on a voluntary basis or for profit. And I think you really have to, or we have to understand the importance of creating initiatives that result in profit, because that is the way that we are going to start revitalizing the economy. And then the next step comes, in my mind, and these are the steps that we've laid out as our objectives, is setting standards. And that becomes, once we understand and collect the data from the connecting, from the collaborating, from the knowledge sharing, we can start building together the frameworks to allow good governance, to allow corporate governance. And in the process, making people understand where my role, what role do I play in making an economy vibrant? So I think a lot of people, including myself, may not have understood or may not understand what is it that I do today by way of launching a little project. Where does that fit in terms of the bigger scheme of things, in terms of keeping that economy churning? What is my role in terms of giving my voice? How do I lobby appropriately? These are all things that as the diaspora, we can participate, and that raising that awareness, talking, sharing new concepts abroad. And finally, repatriation. I don't believe that we can operate in Sudan without one hand on the other. The diaspora coming back to Sudan, but again, we need the right conditions in place that allows us to come back and participate. Because you just imagine, we have so much expertise outside. We spend a lot of money churning money into economies abroad. Some of that money can come back with us. Our networks come back and invest in Sudan. It doesn't just have to be Sudanese people. We can draw on non-Sudanese, anybody with a positive interest in Sudan. So essentially, I would just close by saying, if you've got a gift, it's never going to be a gift, a complete gift without the ribbon at the end. And I would second Bashair's comment earlier. We need the government to set the strategies, to set the right standards for us so that we can start operating within that, and organizations can start creating the right strategies that can help us get that formula right and get things moving forward. So I'll stop here because I think my time is up. But I look forward to participating in the Q&A session, and anybody who's got a question for me, happy to take it up.
Thank you very much, Renda. And I remember when we were meeting on Saturdays in front of the Sudanese embassy and Trafalgar Square during the revolution. It is really very empowering to see that you have taken all of that positive energy to think about how can you make use of it, and linking with the, as you say, different generation, removing all of the barriers and boundaries, whether geographical or age. And yes, we come back to having a standard so that we can get the formula right. I second you for the concept of learning from each other. Because of the sake of time, I would like as well to say that we have Professor Manzoor. He has sent a question, and there are other as well questions. I will come back to them in the second round, but we have another two speakers. We have Amjad Saleh. Amjad has got an important initiative in the UK. We would like to know about it to see how we can transfer the similar thought to Sudan. It is called the Black Excellence Network, a mentorship scheme aiming to increase representation of Black students in the top universities. Amjad is joining the University of Oxford, so we are very, very proud of his achievement. Amjad, the floor is yours.
I muted Amjad through Amal because she said he is speaking through her accounts.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
Hello, yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, let me just turn my camera. Sorry about that. But Hi, I'm Amjad, and yeah, I would just like to start off by saying like thank you so much for just inviting me to this, and like it's been such a privilege, to learn about this and like to have experts in their fields just talk about this. And it's been really insightful, so thank you. And the Black Excellence Network is essentially a mentorship scheme, and me and 3 of my other friends started about 5 months ago. And essentially, what we want to do is elevate, the African diaspora in general in the UK. We do this by, helping them, mentoring them through, to get into the top universities and giving them guidance, but also offering them opportunities. So, this started when I was like looking back at my Oxford offer, and my friend also going to LSE, and we wanted to give back to the community. Sorry, let me just. You wanted to give back to the community in some way. And like we knew that a lot of processes are down to not down to hard work, and they're down to a lot of mentoring and guidance that's needed. So we thought a mentorship scheme would be perfect. And also like representation is also very important. To having the top universities, and we have a strong Sudanese community as well. So like when I went to visit Oxford, before I applied, I think I saw like one Black person there. And at that moment, I was like, okay, yeah, I can definitely do this. If he can do this, like I can do this. So I think that's very important, representation. And, just to link it back to how we, elevate the Sudanese diaspora, and how we kind of like, how it links that is, I think in 2 ways is, the first way is, if we elevate them, if they get into the top universities, they're in a position where they're in a much better position where they can, contribute back to Sudan, and, like, have that essence of like knowledge sharing, and contribute back with intellectual capital, as you guys were saying, and also remittances. So there's that essence of it, and I think the also other part of it is it can be. I found that growing up here most of my life is very easy to lose focus in your heritage and your Sudanese heritage, like constantly being surrounded by people that are not Sudanese, and they're not African in general. Is it's very easy to kind of associate yourself more with British people. So I think bringing them together, and we kind of really encourage them to network with each other and talk with each other, so then they can really be in touch with their heritage. And that's when it gets to the point when they have elevated, they can contribute back, whether this is going back to Sudan or just staying here, and just as I said before, remittances or intellectual capital. So that's what we're about. And just to give you an overview of the program, we only started about 5 months, but we've got as I said before, we've got a strong Sudanese community, around about 30 people, and overall we've got about 200 mentors and mentees. And yeah, we have that side of the mentorship where we pair them up with students who are in the position in the university that they want to be in the courses that they want to be in. But we also have the other side of it where it's we're offering them opportunities, we're collating opportunities and showing it to them, but also we're making opportunities. So for example, we secured a 23 places for a law internship for our students, and also we have a law competition coming out very soon, which is an exclusive thing where they get to network with barristers and judges. So it really is about mentoring them, guiding them through the UCAS and university process, but also giving them opportunities and skills that they can bring outside of university and elevate themselves further. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amjad, for coming today and sharing this sort of impressive initiative and the role of mentoring and upskilling and career advice, and that we need as well to transfer this sort of story to Sudan, because there has been a lot of areas about career advice, about improving opportunity for especially girls as well as boys in university and higher education. So we would like to carry on and come back to see what happened in 6 months and take it from there. I'm not quite sure if our last speaker, I'm sure about time, Ahmed, if he's around. I tried to text him, Ahmed Al-Haj from the UNDP Diaspora.
Yes, I unmuted. I requested to unmute Ahmed. Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Ahmed. Ahmed, thank you. I hope the internet will be more successful this time in Sudan, and we are very grateful for you joining us. Briefly, I will just give about Ahmed, who has got more than 20 years experience working for various international non-governmental organizations and a number of the United Nations agencies. And he managed institutions with diverse mandate and different programs and priorities, women, promoting gender aspect, emergency humanitarian support, peace building, poverty reduction, agricultural development, human resources, and capacity development. And as well, he comes with an experience of supervising staff at different levels, ranging from junior to high-level technicals. He is today representing the UNDP Sudan, the diaspora, and we are looking forward to hear from Ahmed. After that, we will just have a set of questions, and we will end there. تفضل يا أحمد.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you, Bashir. Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad to be part of this dialogue. Actually, I would like to present today the experience of UNDP, and what's good is just one of the practical experiences about the diaspora engagement with the transitional government from within Sudan. So what I'm seeing right now, as if we're actualizing all the good intentions of all our diaspora abroad, and how to actualize that and bring it in a practical way to support the government. Actually, UNDP started that like last December, and that was in response to the request made by the government, the Prime Minister, to support the government with setting up the diaspora engagement program, and started just like an initiative to find out the best entry points to efficiently engage the diaspora within the government to support. And usually with the UNDP, the initiative is just to explore the best opportunities, to make the networks, to start up with finding out the niche for different stakeholders to work in a harmonious way. And then that has to be followed by a full-fledged project. So it's just an initiative, 12 months that will end of December. It's December 2019, December 2020, and then by the onset of January 2021, we will go with a full-fledged project following the initiative and based on the findings of the engagement discussion, the dialogue, and the recommendations of the practical steps that have been taken for the diaspora engagement. Actually, there were 3 pathways during this initiative. The first one is just on how to engage diaspora to boost the local economy, the country and the national economy of Sudan. And that focused on the remittances. And as I'm seeing that we're all talking the same language, we are just putting the same priorities almost in the same way. So I'm very much glad that we're speaking well tuned on the same wavelength. But we might just step one step more here because we have some connection with the government, with the local community, with the local context in Sudan. So for the remittances, actually, we had like 2 studies. One study about the remittances, quantifying the remittances, the modalities of the remittances, the challenges, the opportunities, and these studies almost now finalizing, and that have been conducted by one of the top-notch experts of the economists worldwide for the UN, and that actually quantified the sum of around 3 billion US dollars on annual basis, the transfer, and categorized and as per the category, the country, the region, and the different aspects. What's really good is it's talking about the formal and informal remittances, starting with the family support, with the investment, and it's very amazing that even the categories of the different investment that the diaspora are very much encouraged to engage in, and bringing up the interest of the diaspora in the real estate sector, where most of the investment goes on that, and even quantifies how much. So maybe in the very near future, we can even share that study, and I think it will give a lot of insights, and it will highlight a lot of very important areas on how that money actually injected in the economy, being formally or informally, and within the different sectors. And now it have been even complemented by the impact of COVID-19, and it's like there's some preliminary funding that's talking about the less half a billion less remittances due to the COVID-19, and even now some return of some Sudanese migrants due to the impact of COVID-19, and that actually implicate the government to be prepared to accommodate the Sudanese returning to their home country, being part of the Gulf countries or being elsewhere. Most of them actually from the Gulf countries. There is no anticipation of the diaspora, Sudanese diaspora with the dual nationalities to come back, but it's all about the Sudanese in the Gulf most probably. So this is one thing, that the remittances are looking to the remittance in different ways, not only to the taxation and the money sent back to country, but even the investment part of the Sudanese remittances. The other part of boosting the economy is through the modality of the trust fund, the Diaspora Trust Fund. And I'm glad that Prof. Bakri, he mentioned about the Ethiopian in the US and how they are connected with the country, and they're invited by the country to come back and share the knowledge. So actually we looked in that, and we had some support of some international experts talking about the different trust fund modalities, and actually promoting the Ethiopian trust fund modality, and prepared like a full model, a guideline, and even the steps towards practical establishment of Sudanese Diaspora Trust Fund, and how that can be engaged both at the development projects type and to promote even the investment and trade, engagement of diaspora in investment and trade through the trust fund that have been, and this is the interesting thing, is that it have to be governed by the diaspora themselves. It's not just money that granted to the government to boost the economy or to boost the wealth of the foreign currency, but rather it can be kept anywhere in the world. It can be fully managed by the diaspora themselves through coordination and the priorities from the government to be well aligned with where the development projects and even the investment projects, making use of, it's like a win-win, and this is the low-hanging fruit, man, where the people can invest their money to have good returns, and at the same time, they contribute in the recovery and in the economy boosting and stabilization of the country. The other pathway we are exploring and working on is, and actually it's built on the old TOCTIM modality that's known for most of you, definitely. And actually we are moving now forward to prepare more sustainable model for knowledge and technology transfer to connect the diaspora, to make use of what we call the comparative advantage of the diaspora, the knowledge they have, the experience, the exposure, the networks, the accumulation of even of knowledge, and to help building the capacity, the poor capacity within the country. And using the diaspora, the real comparative advantage is that they are actually twinning or combining, being part of the local context, despite they are abroad, and bringing in the experience and the knowledge that and technology they gained while being around the globe, being exposed to different experiences. So working on that, bringing now different even modalities, not only the volunteers, it has to be a longer term, the connection has to be more durable. The diaspora, they have to be part of the change management. It's not just hit and run. The TOCTIM mostly focused on just giving some training, some tips, some policy advisory, but this program now work on making real connections, making longer term type of engagement, and actually has to engineer the project in such a way that it has to be a longer term, and the diaspora has to be part of the longer term the change and capacity development. On that, we already started on establishing even IT infrastructure. So the engagement can be actualized remotely, making use of the Sudanese experts wherever they are, building on one experience that we had already with the Prime Minister's office establishing a very strong IT infrastructure. Now, also through the COVID-19, they are just running the whole business processes through that infrastructure. So this is one of the areas, and actually, 1 minute, okay? I will not proceed more, but for this one, there is a lot of networks. So the last thing that we're working on in try to have a central pivotal mechanism to coordinate the huge diaspora initiatives in such a way that it makes like a very harmonized mechanism to engage the in and out, the diaspora with the government based on the needs, the identified needs and priorities of the government. I stop at this point, and if there is some questions, then I can come back. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ahmed, for your contribution. That's, as you say, it's on the ground schemes that are running. Yes, thank you very much for stressing that the diaspora are one of the main stakeholders, especially when planning a strategy so that they can be part of that. As well, research and evidence base is one of the major concepts that the GPO would stress in relation to future engagement of the diaspora in the rebuilding and reconstruction during this period. Because of the sake of time, we just have the last 10 minutes in some questions, if that's okay with the speakers. Welcome everybody who has sent their greetings. Al-Mansour Jahbar have sent some nice ideas. أفكار قد تساعد في عملية التنمية والسلام. We will take a snapshot of all of these and add them to the summary of this symposium. Thank you, Rasha, Hashim, Amira, Professor Manzoul. We are privileged to have you here today with us. Iman have answered some of the questions. If there are more questions, please send them. Jihad, thank you. I think Jihad has got a question about research. How nonviolent resistance could be used to stop the new takeovers in Sudan. And Jihad is in the UK, and he works in the field of academic and research. This is one of the questions about research on how a non-violent resistance can be used to stop new takeovers in Sudan. Not sure if Bakri, that's an area that you are interested, or Shireen to answer.
Oh, such an interesting and complex question. Let me take a crack at it.
He's thinking, let me just tell you what he said. I've been thinking of developing research on how nonviolent resistance can be used to prevent new military takeover in Sudan. Jihad is as I said, he's an academic in the UK. Yeah.
If the question is about designing a research, I think maybe we can have a conversation outside this panel so that we don't have to take time. Because I would be more than happy to engage in talking about theoretical framework and some research methodologies and some areas. I've done some few studies in democratization process using civil resistance. That's an academic piece. But if the question is about really aiding and helping civil resistance to stop military takeovers, that's a really complex question. And the only thing we have is to say civil and try. But given what we know is going on in Sudan, this is a balance of weakness. The deal we had last year, upon which we formed this government, is not really, there is no win. The revolution did not win. What we have is we managed to get to a point where we can start the process peacefully. And that is going to take maybe, I know some people don't like to hear this. This is a process, not an event. It could take 10, 15 years until we can actually say Sudan is a fully democratic country, if we are lucky. So just a quick thing to really comment on this.
Thank you. We have Malik as well, has made some comment, Malik Jack. The question to Shireen, what impact can be anticipated? As we have noticed, most of the civilian transitional government have come from the diaspora. A question to Shireen, what impact can be anticipated from such configuration?
I am afraid that Shireen is not here anymore.
Okay, anybody can answer? As we noticed, most of the civilian transitional government have come from the diaspora. A question is, what impact can be anticipated from such configuration?
Sarah, may I come in? I guess
Yeah.
the question in my mind is, are we talking here about the fact that perhaps, let's say, most of us are from the diaspora, and where is the Sudanese sort of partners? Is that what this question is implying? Is that bridging that gap between us sitting outside of the country and those sitting in Sudan? I think we need a little bit of clarification, perhaps.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment?
Thank you again. Not an easy question or answer, really, and I think it's just the reality of it's into the area of politics, but as each situation is different. If we just kind of look at the case of Somalia, for example, you have probably half the government is from diaspora background, but it just tells you about the kind of the history. People had to leave, and but they still wanted to engage in the country of origin. So I think it's you have to do that. And I think there was the discussions whether you can have diasporians being in government, but the reality is they were looking at technocrats and stuff. So I'm not going to go into the debate on what happened, but I think there's no actually clear answer for that. There's no right or wrong, but actually what configuration works for a specific period of time. And at the moment, it's for the transitional period.
So sorry, may I just come in one moment? Perhaps also from my perspective, maybe we shouldn't create this divide of the diaspora. I mean, I'm Sudanese, you know. Yeah. So I don't see myself different to someone who is sat in Sudan, and I speak to them in the same way. We meet, you know, our minds meet in the same place. So I think it just takes a little bit of flexibility on both parts. But I think the question goes back to identity. So we seem to create these divides and divisions already. We shouldn't really, in my view. I don't want to be referred to as the diaspora. I mean, I understand as a category, but I'm Brenda Abdullahi Muhammad Ahmed, Sudaniya. And so I have all the rights as anybody who's based in Sudan. There's no difference.
That's a very, very valid point. Magdi has made a comment, and maybe Iman, you can come here. He said, I'm concerned that you talk about the diaspora input as if it is a neutral, benign, and positive variable, where it is definitely not, free from its negative impact.
I don't know who will
repeat it again. Yeah.
I think it's a good point, because definitely I think people should not just assume as a diaspora is going to be a positive force. And this is why one of the emphasis was about pragmatic, doing the research, looking at the agenda, and that's why the agenda needs to be led in terms of the government, what are the needs and all of that. And I think even in terms of in academic circles, I think there was actually more fear of diaspora, rather than it's only in the last couple of years that kind of diaspora seen as a positive force. So they were seen as a negative force largely, who you know, especially in kind of conflict situation, extending conflicts and such. So I think that kind of nuanced understanding is quite critical. But again, it's there's no black and white. There's that nuances needs to come into play and recognize.
Okay, because of the sake of time, there's a lot of questions. I don't think we can answer all of them. There's a question about how can we establish models of best practice that can be Sudanized excellence models, such as the EFQM that can help us benchmarking every governmental department, private sector, and NGO. That's one question. How Sudanese diaspora use their capacity development, capabilities, and transnationalism to contribute and rebuild the framework and micro development in education sector. I think these are the last two questions at the moment. There's questions from Dr. Musa'ad Abdullah. We are happy to take some of these questions later because of the sake of time. So what I will do at the moment is give each of the speakers who are still with us about 2 minutes to close by what they think is the most valuable a message to be sent to all Sudanese in Sudan and in the diaspora. If we just go, I don't know, by the same sequence, I'm not sure if Bakri would like to start.
Yes, I can start. Well, thank you very much for actually having me, and this is very interesting with such a really outstanding speakers, and everybody, you know, people touch on different aspects of the topic, and I think collectively they have been such a good contribution to looking at this. It's a really complex issue. I understand that there is a need to use the way of just, you know, sort of defining who's in, who's out. But again, I agree with Randa. We are not such isolated islands, people living in Sudan, people living abroad. And reality is most people who are actually living abroad, it's some of us by choice, some of us we were actually forced at some point in our lives to leave Sudan, and we're connected. I think one of the biggest, I think there are two lines that I would like to say that we can really think about those of us living outside the country and those of us in the country. And diaspora is not just Europe or the US. There are people living in the Gulf. There is 4 million Sudanese people living in Gulf countries. So what I'm trying to say is we can focus on there is individualized actions. Some of us who can, one way to really help is to use our knowledge, expertise, our money. We can vacation in Sudan more rather than actually go somewhere else. We can actually invest in Sudan. So instead of just buying a land, we can actually start investing in some productive activities. I think this is one way we can really help the country and the economy to start recovery. I urge every one of you who has a little bit of money and you can take a risk to probably invest in Sudan. That's one way we can actually do that as individuals. The other way is if we can actually develop, which is really related to the question that I heard, how do we develop institutionalized, Sudanized experiment of knowledge sharing and ways of instituting new ways of enhancing governance? And to me, that's what the GPO can really help. Different platforms, Dr. Bashir, Shabaka. I still go back and talk about the Ethiopian experiment. I think if we create something like this, as Sudanese in every country abroad, maybe come together and create some funds and try to see if we can take some, especially second generation Sudanese who really don't even the language or lived in the country, to provide them with opportunities to go back and spend maybe a 3-month internship opportunities, ways of linking them back to Sudan. I think those two lines are very helpful. Of course, there are lots of other ways to engage with the government, with local communities, with our friends, our family, football clubs, a lot of ways to do that. But I think these are two areas that I can highlight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bakri. Bashir?
No, thank you again for organizing. This is a really interesting event, and the speakers absolutely brilliant. And thanks in particular to you, Sarah, and Sam, who has been managing the chats and everyone. So thank you, Sam. Just briefly, I think one of the key things I had mentioned several times is we can talk about the diaspora capital, we can talk about the financial investments, what they can do, the positive component of it. However, all this goodwill will not be feasible. It needs to a pathway to be delivered. So unless there is a clear framework to process that, and I'm really glad to what Ahmed from UNDP had mentioned already, that the work they're doing, the report about remittances, so really kind of that evidence base is critical. So I think the next step is really, what do we need to do? What is the government needing to do? Facilitate that, instead of everyone contacting the Ministry of Labour and Social Development separately, or Ministry of Health and all of that. There needs to be a cohesive frame and envisaging what that, so it's also sustainable. And I will just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bashir. Randa, I think Iman and Shireen are not there.
So I guess, Sarah, I would start by saying thanks for this very relevant topic. And most importantly, thank you for bringing different initiatives together and different experts together. In my mind, dialogue is really a window into peaceful coexistence. If we can't talk to each other, if we can't understand where we are misunderstanding each other, if we can't understand the end user's need. We don't understand those needs, we'll never be able to get to practical solutions. And I think that's what we really always have to remind ourselves of. Where are the opportunities to implement practical solutions, and who are the key players that we need to collaborate with, connect with, coordinate with? So I would say for my fellow Sudanese abroad, don't be put off by you know, the conditions. There are opportunities in Sudan, and I believe there is a place for each and every one of us to make a positive difference. And for my fellow Sudanese in Sudan, I would say to them, do not underestimate what we have lost out by living and growing up abroad. You may think the concept of lost identity in Sudan is severe, but certainly for myself and my close-knit network, really it's a struggle to identify as either, you know, Sudanese or not. It's just a constant struggle. And one thing for sure is I know I'm Sudanese, and I want that acceptance, and I want that recognition. So bear in mind, I am and we are an extension to you. You are the end user, and we are armed with resources that we can literally benefit each other. And I would finally say to the government, do not lose sight of what is available at the moment by way of extensive resources and excitable people waiting to participate in the process of building and reconstructing Sudan. So do not shun that opportunity. Create the right environment and the conditions to grab these resources. And I will just end by reminding everyone, we are a professional arsenal, and this is how Sudan is definitely going to prosper. I've got no doubt in my mind. Thank you for that.
Very strong words. Thank you very much. Amjad, are you around? If Ahmed available,
okay.
you can.
Yeah. I'm actually what I'm thinking that it's high time now to create like dialogue platform. And I'm seeing this is the way forward to engage the very fruitful dialogue between the diaspora and the government, because what I have seen right now, there's a lot of initiatives came from the diaspora, and it's full of enthusiasm, it's full of energy, it's full even of very good intentions, but unfortunately tapping different doors and then it goes nowhere, which created like I don't want to say blockage, but let's say delay. So it's high time to start to think about having the framework in a collective way, thinking collectively, seeing the complementarities, how we have to think together. And we are trying as UNDP to facilitate these joint platforms starting maybe next month or the months afterwards, and even of the ideas and that have been discussed with the SSWA at some point of time, that maybe before the end of this year, there will be the conference, the Diaspora Conference, to have a consultative very productive and practical way of having solid results on how to have the framework in a way that it's very beneficial to all parties. And then one important thing that I'm not seeing the diaspora as a siloed group, as out of context group. The diaspora, they are part of the country. And to tell you the truth, I think even the economy of the poor economy of the country have been all the time supported by the diaspora. All the houses are supported by the diaspora. The connections are all the time being there. Coming back to the country, spending some time here through the different, the media, the telephone, the whatever, people are very much connected. So even under the diaspora, yes, you are abroad, but you are Sudanese, and even you may be more connected with the country and its issues more than some people who are engaged in some other business in country. So the platforms, the dialogue, the working together, the framework, the policies and the strategies, I'm seeing this as priorities, and I hope we can work together. And we as UNDP are putting that as priority, and we'll try to facilitate that in the very near future. And I hope to see that actually advancing the work of diaspora in this country. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ahmed, for summarizing that.
Thank you.
And about the Diaspora Conference, and yeah, we're looking forward for the engagement of the diaspora stakeholder in this conference. Amjad, are you around?
Yes, yeah. Sorry about before, but yeah, I do realize as like a teenager, I'm very limited in what I could do right now, just in like the knowledge and like the things I can offer. But like as I start my degree, I'm very excited to, you know, start my degree in economics and management. I'm very excited to learn more and, you know, to be able to contribute a lot more to Sudan. And even if it's like, I think that's my main message then. Like even if you feel like you're limited in some way, just do the best that you can. So in my instance, I want to inspire my peers in a way that they can, you know, be inspired to look into their heritage and be more connected to their Sudanese side or the African side. So yeah, I think that's my main message. And
Thank you
yeah,
very
happy
much.
to connect to anyone.
No, thank you very much. I think that the main aim for the GPO, that, as we said, we don't have any limitation about age, geography, or experience. We would like to come all together. Thank you very much for joining us today. Sorry about the technical parts. Thank you, Dr. Haider Ibrahim, for being here with us. It has been a privilege for having all of our speakers here. Thank you, Samira, and for the technical support. GPO will have an annual meeting. So this symposium will be next year, inshallah. But we are going to take all of the recommendation and share it on the appropriate platforms. We have to remind that we have our think tank in Sudan, who are the major part of the GPO. And please follow us in Twitter at Governance PO. And thank you, and have a nice evening, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah.